Thank you. Good afternoon. I'd like to give a very warm welcome to everyone to our Budget Committee meeting this afternoon, Friday, June 24th. Welcome. I will note I'm chairing the meeting on behalf of Warden French, who's at home. It's a little easier to do it here, but welcome to everyone. We will get started. First off, I guess approval of our agenda. Do we have any additions? Councillor? So
Just I'll move it.
that's a mover. Seconder, Councillor Jiguer. All in favor of that? And that carries. Thank you. Adoption of our minutes from the previous meeting of January 22nd. Are there any errors or omissions in those minutes? Trust we've all read them, memorized them. Okay. If there's no errors, omissions, additions, mover please. Councillor Jiguer, Warden French, please call the vote. I guess I can call the vote. Okay, all in favor? And that carries. Thank you. I would remind everyone of disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof. And I will so note none. I do not believe we have any delegations, briefings, SCORE short line rail, General Manager of Engineering, Planning and Enterprise Deputy CAO and Director of Financial Services are here. Who's going to lead discussion? Brian?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to the committee, presenting this on behalf of Julie in her absence. So as the committee is well aware, SCORE has requested that the County of Algonquin provide a letter of support of financial contribution of up to $150,000 over 3 years to support an application for funding under the National Trade Corridors Fund to upgrade infrastructure of the Cayuga Subdivision Short Line Rail serving the counties of Oxford, Elgin, and Norfolk. The purpose of this report is to provide additional information to the Budget Committee and in an effort to provide the required direction. At its meeting on May 24th, County Council received a presentation from SCORE along with repeated requests for that funding. The motion is detailed in the staff report before you. SCORE, through further consultation with staff, have confirmed that a third-party condition assessment of all at-grade rail crossings on county and local roads within Elgin County has been completed. Project estimates were also provided and confirmed, and SCORE staff were able to confirm that an expression of interest received from Geo Rail Incorporated, along with confirmation that a 10-year lease agreement with the owners of the short line rail track, being CN Rail, are underway. Should SCORE be successful in its application, funds received from all partners, as well as 50% contribution from GeoRail, would be put towards track infrastructure. This project has been brought forward mid-year and was not previously identified in the 2022 budget. Funding for this project would be sourced from the Growth Reserve, a stabilization reserve established by Council to be utilized for future capital expansion. The 2022 year-end projected balance of the Growth Reserve Fund is projected to be $588,000. Caution should be noted to the committee to ensure compliance with Section 103 of the Municipal Act with respect to anti-bonusing provisions. It is recommended that a legal opinion be sought from Elgin County's Legal Services team to ensure compliance with the Municipal Act and be presented before Council as well. Staff have listed a series of conversation starters intended to address a number of questions that have been asked of SCORE staff that were not addressed as part of SCORE's presentation. Those questions and comments are presented in the staff report as well. With that, Mr. Chair, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Councillor
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to staff. Brian, do you know what the timing of the financial commitment is? Obviously, they're looking for a commitment of a financial contribution, but I would assume that they're not looking for the 150,000 or 50,000 in 2022, but going forward, say 2023, 24, 25. Is that my understanding? Is it correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, they're looking for a $150,000 commitment
Yeah.
over 3 years, so $50,000 required in 2022.
They want a 2022
Yes,
contribution?
correct.
For what purpose? They haven't even got the grant.
There's a commitment, so there's a letter of commitment that's required
Okay.
of council, subject to acceptance of that grant. Then it's understood that SCORE staff, from SCORE staff, that funding will be required this year if the grant is approved.
Okay. My apologies, Mr. Chairman. I didn't make the last SCORE meeting, so maybe that was discussed in Paris.
I guess I was at the meeting and Mary was there on keep calling it Skype, it's not Skype, but she was with us. When we first got there, we found out, Madam Warden, correct me if I say something that's not right, but from memory, there was a 2-week extension, so I think Councillor Ed, we talked there at our last meeting that we thought, was behind us. So I was a bit surprised that we were still kind of in the game, if you will. There was discussion and actually had a coffee with Warden Martin after the meeting. There was a request that Oxford be the banker, and Councillor Martin indicated that Oxford was on board with the exception they were looking for the legal opinion. They didn't want that bonusing problem, and they were looking into it. So the warden and I had a chat. Well, we should take a look at this because all of a sudden Elgin County is the only one that's really, we got another chance to do this to see whether it's worth it or not. So that's where I attended the Middlesex Warden's banquet yesterday, Warden's golf tournament yesterday. And Allison Warwick was there. She indicated to me that Oxford has agreed. That's only verbally. I don't know if anyone else heard that, but so that was a good indicator that Oxford is on side, willing to be the banker. They're not concerned about their bonusing thing. Well, that's only a verbal. I'm not saying that's. Go ahead, Brian. You have an opinion on that?
No, I through Mr. Chair, I'll defer our opinion to our legal counsel, but what I will say is that we can confirm that Oxford County Council has committed the required funding of $150,000. And I would further note, in response to Councillor Ketchabah's comment, SCORE should know as to whether or not they're successful with respect to their application sometime this fall.
Thank you.
So it just kind of put us back in the game. Everyone's looking at Elgin County. And the warden was gracious enough to call this meeting late on a Friday afternoon, but to give the budget committee a chance to discuss it so that we can give a recommendation to the full council meeting on Tuesday. So that's my take on it. And I guess in discussion from what I took from the SCORE meeting, we don't know whether it'll happen, but this $150,000, they're leveraging a lot of money. Well, the other important thing was for the new news come in. Warden Work attended the FCM conference out west, had the opportunity to, I believe she said she had lunch with CN president, CP president, one of them, and come away completely convinced that rail has a rebirth. She has a lot of information she'd be willing to share with us on some of the statistics, cost of moving freight versus, the traditional way on the 401 with transport trucks. So it's new information. So I think the warden and I discussed it. Maybe we should bring this back. So there is a willingness to share that information. I don't have it, but that's all I have to share. So. Madam Warden, was it closed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with what you've said. I think that's what I caught at the meeting as well. I do think we should look at this again, and I'm so grateful that the budget committee was able to get together today, and my apologies for not being there, but at least I'm here virtually. Anyway, I was gonna ask you, Brian, through you, Mr. Chair, to Brian, is there a way we could, I like what Councillor Ketchapah was saying about paying out this $150,000. Is there perhaps another way we could approach that? Like, for instance, 75,000 next year and 75,000 the year after? I don't know if you can reach out to SCORE and ask them if that's something we could look at as well, just so we have some options.
I thought it was my understanding that they're asking for 50, 50, 50. So it's 50 over, so like, and I think even if 1 year it all fell apart, that's sort of the end of it. So this next, first year, they want $50,000, then there'd be a 12-month interval and they'll hold their hand out again. You know, as long as things are going great and there's still problems for the 3 years, but I don't think they want the 150 all at once. This,
Right.
if I understand, it's just the 50.
Well, the only reason I bring this up, Mr. Chair, is the fact that in reality, we never budgeted the $50,000 for this year's budget. And so what I'm trying to say is if we could split that up, I know they want 50,000 for 3 years, but what if we were able to say we were interested, but we're going to give 75,000 next year and 75,000 the year after? I'm just worried about the fact that, you know, we're really trying to be careful with our budget. We've already got the budget set, and so now we're asking for more money, and we are very cautious about that as a budget committee. So I'm just trying to think of other ways we could still approach this project, but not change the budget for 2022.
Brian, go ahead.
Through Mr. Chair, I would make two comments. Number one, the committee and through extension, council needs to be cautious about tying the hands of future councils with respect in regards to future commitments. Staff have not had that discussion, but we're happy to have further discussion with SCORE. And thirdly, I would note that funds do exist in the 2022 budget for the requested commitment, if that is the will of ultimately of council.
Councilor,
To pick up on that, then, Mr. Chair, I appreciate not tying the hands of council, but if we do agree to 150, we are tying the hands of future councils, because we're saying there's going to be 50 in 23 and another 50 in 24. So, and, you know, I'm fine with that. I think we have to make a decision that we're in or not, but that may not come into consideration. I'm wondering if there's a need at the moment of writing the letter. Is there a need for a disbursement at that point, or can we write the letter and wait until they get approved and then things get rolling, because we know there's always delays? And my last question is, yes, I am interested in hearing from staff as to where they suggest to the budget committee that we could take that money from, because it may be an opportunity that was not anticipated, obviously, but well, worth it.
go ahead, Brian.
Through Mr. Chair, SCORE won't require the funds if they aren't successful. So subject to a successful application, that's when the funds would be required.
So we don't have to write the check
First
for a while.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, yeah, that's my understanding as well, and that's why I was wondering and curious why the 50,000 was required in 2022. But, and more to Warden French's comments, whether it's a $50,000 commitment this year and for the next 2 years, or 75,000, 50,000 is a little easier to come up with than 75. And as already staff have indicated, you do have the growth reserve fund. This wasn't specifically for this, but it is for those kinds of things that do tend to crop up from time to time. And I think the pertinent question that this committee needs to think about and ponders, is this something worthwhile that we should recommend for the county to go down that road? Recognizing, yes, it is mainly the eastern side or portion of the county that may potentially benefit. And I agree with, Mr. Chairman, your remarks from Warden Warwick, that, yeah, I think you're gonna see a resurgence in rail. You're having a tough time recruiting transport drivers at the moment. We do know that volume-wise, it's cheaper to move by rail. And if, I would argue that the larger municipality that's gonna probably benefit the most out of this would be the town of Elmer, with the majority of the industrial site right along that corridor. Malahide and Bam, we're ancillary. We may get a few, but I think it's Elmer that's gonna benefit the most here out of this. But still, that doesn't, it doesn't diminish the scale of the project and then what it could mean. I kind of like it myself.
I think our job today is give a recommendation to full council. I wonder, because Warden Allison did indicate she would provide that information on request. And she said, whether it be a one-on-one phone call with individual counselors, or perhaps we can ask her to give some kind of report on Tuesday if someone, but some of the figures, and I think her term was, they were staggering. And I think it would catch because we have a lot of our council concerned with the environment, and some of these things, if they're true, and I take that they are true, I think the public would welcome that. How many times have we all grumbled about driving on the 401 with too many trucks? There's an opportunity maybe that we can assist in that. So I'm in favor of this. I think it's probably obvious I am, but I would encourage anyone, whether we can't get a report from Allison quick enough, I know she'd be welcome to discuss it with anyone. She did indicate that. And I was convinced after I heard some of it. So personally, I'm in favor. I'm glad we're getting another opportunity to discuss this. $50,000, I think they're talking leveraging $7 or $8 million. I think why not? But I guess that's our decision today, is to give some kind of a recommendation on Tuesday.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support it as well. It does seem like a potential high return on a fairly low investment. I'm curious from staff, so I know the growth reserve has been mentioned, but do we know now, we're almost 6 months in, do we know of other areas where there's been unanticipated either or savings or things that will not happen for whatever reason? Because I want to protect the growth reserve and not see it as our fund that we, like our go-to any time there's an opportunity. So if this was an unanticipated spend, is there also somewhere an unanticipated saving that, and perhaps that's putting you on the spot too much right now, but I'm just curious if you know overall our financial position at this point, where, I don't know if you can provide an overall answer to that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Giguère. We have had some internal issues, but I think at this point I know enough that we have had some staffing shortages, some HR issues recruiting. So I think that we would be able to rely on that coming forward, but at this point I have not an actual number for you.
Right.
Brian, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, through you to Councillor Giguère, we're happy to present a report back in response to your inquiry. Happy to do so.
That would be great. Just again, just to see that, I think to show that we're still within our budget.
Right.
So we're not going into the growth reserve, that this is actually doable within the approved budget. That would make me very comfortable.
May I clarify, Mr. Chair, Brian, you're talking about perhaps a walk-on if we decide to move this to council for Tuesday? Just a suggestion of where the available funding may come from for the 2022 commitment? I think that's what Councillor Giguère is looking at.
Yeah. If it's doable.
Potentials, is it
Yeah.
doable? Can we accommodate it? I think is what her concern is.
Yeah.
Even if it was a statement to say that we are confident based on,
Sure.
monitoring some of the accounts, that our financial position would be that we can afford this within the budget from another account. without going to the growth reserve, without a specific, naming the account and naming the specifics of, because that may not be reasonable for Tuesday morning.
I'm sensing a consensus of the four of us. We're nodding our heads that way. We still have to remember that it'd be a recommendation. There's 5 other counselors will have opinions. But, you know, I'm glad that we've got some new information and, you know, we'll see what kind of mood the rest of them are in, but, I think it's the right thing to do. Do we need further discussion or are we prepared to make a recommendation?
Just to clarify, Brian, you're still saying that is there time between, and sorry, Mr. Chair, I should have went through. There is time for the legal department to have a bit of an opinion on whether this even qualifies?
Through Mr. Chair, to Councillor Ketchell, yeah, we have had ongoing discussions as early as this morning with respect to this matter, and we expect that we will have a direction in that regard.
Because if our legal team says it can't, then obviously Oxford, I would assume, says it can't, and then that's pretty well precludes the deal.
Yeah, and if Oxford has said, which has been indicated to me verbally, that they're a go, you'd think that ours would follow, but
Wow.
we have to wait for their opinions.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Any more discussion? We were prepared to make a recommendation?
I'm just writing the proposed resolution to see if it, I don't think there's anything that needs to be changed, because there's nothing that pertains in the resolution that's proposed for today. We don't mention the growth. Oh, yes, it does say using the growth reserve.
Yeah.
So could we just edit that part?
Which,
We have an either or from staff today.
do we?
Yeah, it's an either or, isn't it, pretty much?
Right.
It's the green.
Say no or,
It's the green, right?
We go with the green one in the third paragraph. The last line does say that we're saying yes, using the growth reserve.
Do you want to just preclude that? And
Yes.
is it necessary for the motion to have that included?
It would be, through Mr. Chair, would be staff's preference that the wording as recommended remain as is, so reference to growth reserve, and we're happy to provide a report as part of a closed matter on Tuesday
Yeah.
as it relates to this topic.
Right.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, as a process point of view, and I think, you know, even though it's a recommendation coming from the committee, I think council would still maintain or keep the avenue available that should they wish to change the direction of where the funding comes from. That's their purview.
yeah, I agree with that.
Do it at the council level.
I think we can.
Okay.
Madam Warden's nodding her head. So we need a mover and seconder, if we're going there. I'll welcome one.
You or me? Okay, I don't care.
Ed, the warden's seconding, so. No further discussion, we're ready to make a decision. I will call the vote. All in favor of the recommendation? And that's 4-0, and that carries unanimous.
We all go down together.
Yeah. Business of the day? Other business. Yeah, there it is. I'm seeing none other business. We have no correspondence. Date of next meeting, it says the budget committee will meet again on July 12th at 1 PM. It's someone's birthday, I remember. We're at point of adjournment. Looking for a mover and seconder for business is over. Councilor Jiguer moves. Madam Warden seconds. All in favor? Thank you, that carries. We are adjourned.
So that